Truss bracing assembly. If you have a 12-foot wide building, truss braces are not necessary. Most 20-foot wide buildings have truss braces, and all 24-foot and 30-foot wide buildings require truss braces. Our standard truss brace is a 3-part collar tie consisting of 2-inch square tubing and one vertical center brace of 1.5-inch square tubing. Assembling the collar tie. The primary center collar tie tube is 111 inches long with both ends swaged or reduced. Place an end collar tie piece on each end of the center collar tie tube. Refer to your instruction manual for the length of the end collar tie parts on your building. Fasten the joints with 6 screws and attach a left and right collar tie bracket flush with the ends of the collar tie assembly. Center the collar tie in the frame and attach it to the rafters. Place the vertical center brace in the frame between the peak and the collar tie. Make sure the collar tie is straight. Place a single purlin bracket at the top and bottom of the vertical brace tube. Center the vertical brace tube between the peak and collar tie and adjust the brackets to fit. Attach the brackets to the vertical brace with 1 screw on each side of the bracket and 2 screws through the bracket tongue into the peak and collar tie. Web truss bracing. If your building is located in a high snow load area, you will probably require a web truss brace. We've designed a special web-style bracing system that you see laid out here. Once again, check your instruction manual for the proper length braces for your building and the location of those braces. Lay out the assembled roof wall section and the web bracing assembly pieces in preparation for assembly. Put 6 screws at the point where the collar tie tubing sections are joined. Then, attach the collar tie brackets to the end of the collar tie like this. 1 right bracket on the right side and 1 left bracket on the left side. Then, measure down from the joint on the roof truss frame to make sure that this distance is equal on each side. This will ensure that the collar tie is centered. Then, slide the collar tie into place on the roof truss frame. Double check to be sure that the collar tie is centered. Attach a web bracket at the peak with self-drilling screws as shown. Put a hex bolt through the bottom of the brace, through the web bracket, through the other brace, and then secure with a lock washer and a nut. Leave all the bolted joints loose until all the web joints are assembled. At the next bracket location, go ahead and assemble the pieces loosely to give you a positive indication of where the next bracket should go. Screw the bracket into place, then attach the braces with the bolt washer and nut as before. If you can't get the bolt through from underneath, you may need to lift the frame a bit and block it up an inch or so. The corner brace's upper bracket goes 1 inch from the cross member's attachment point. Screw it down and then pre-assemble the pieces for your second bracket location. Before you attach the corner braces to the side posts, check the outside to outside dimension across the bottom of the roof wall assembly post to make sure that it is the same width as your building. Set the bottom corner brace bracket against the side post and attach it to the post with a screw through the hole in the face of the bracket. Remove the nut, let the brace end drop down, and fasten the side of the bracket to the post with 2 screws. Now, reattach the brace end to the bracket. Repeat this assembly on the other side of the truss assembly until all the web braces are in place. Go back and put any remaining screws into the bracket plates. Now you're ready to tighten up the web braces with a ratchet and a pair of pliers or a wrench. When the braced truss is all done, it's ready to go into place on the base rails that we installed, as you'll see in the next step. Step 4. Installing roof wall frames to base rails. Here's where you'll start to see your building taking shape. You'll need at least 2 people for this part, maybe 3 for a 24 or 30-foot building. Start at one end of the building and put the first roof wall assembly, one of the ones with no collar tie brace, on the vertical pins of the first base rail like you see the guys doing here. Fasten the joints with 2 screws each. Be sure to put the screw heads on one of the inner surfaces of the building so they don't get in your way when you start putting the sheet metal on the outside of the building. Repeat this step until all of the assemblies are installed. Remember, the last one that goes up will be one of the ones without the truss brace. Step 5. Installing back base rails. Now lay out the back base rail components like you see here. They're made of 2-inch square steel tubing and T-connectors. Check your assembly manual for the parts and layout for your width building. When you have all of the back base rail assemblies put together, put them between the side base rails, even with the vertical corner post. Then, fasten the end base rails to the corner with angle brackets. Measure to make sure that the vertical pins are evenly spaced. And then put 2 of the self-drilling screws in the top of each of the base rail joints. Once you've got this done, you can go ahead and install the concrete anchors and secure the base rails to your slab just like you did for the side base rails. Step 6. Installing the back verticals. The back verticals are made of 2-inch square steel tubing. Join the back verticals and their appropriate vertical extension tubes. Check your manual for extension lengths to make sure you get them matched up right. Attach a flat bracket at the top like you see here. Don't screw the joints together yet. Some adjustment might be needed later. Now, put the assemblies on the base rails pins. Then, take your level and plumb the assemblies. It's very important that the verticals all around the building are plumb so that the purlins and girts will fit later on. Then slide the extension tube up to touch the rafter or peak and attach it with a flat bracket on the inside of the building. Then attach the vertical supports to the base rails with sheet metal screws. Step 7. Installing front base rails and verticals. Join the base rail tubes and the L-shaped or U-shaped connectors like you see here. Measure and mark the location for the base rails and door openings on the slab.
Looking good.
And screw the base rail tubes together with sheet metal screws. Then anchor the T and U connectors in place with expansion bolts, just like you did the side and back rails. Leave the bolts slightly loose so you'll have an easier time installing the vertical tubes. Assemble the door vertical tubes, door jambs. Check the diagrams in the manual for parts and locations. Attach a flat bracket at the top like you see here. Don't screw the joints together yet. Some adjustment might be needed later. Now, slip the vertical door jamb tubes onto the L or U connectors like this. Then, plumb the door jambs and attach the top portion of the assembly to the rafters or peak. Notice that the flat bracket should be on the inside of the building. Attach the end of the front base rails to the side base rails with angle brackets just like we did at the back corners. Then tighten the nuts on the concrete anchors. Repeat these steps until all the front vertical supports and base rails are complete.